land navigation is a tricky thing when you don't know where you're at, and you've got to try to figure out where you're going. And in the military for 20 years, and one of my jobs was I was pretty good at land navigation. And I know I've told you this before, and I'm not trying to say that to be braggadocious or anything, but I did pretty good with a map and a compass. I could pretty much find my way around just about anywhere. I learned how to read a topographical map real well, learned how to get the map oriented with the compass, and the compass oriented with the map, so I could figure out where I was going and where I needed to be, even if they dropped me somewhere where I had no clue, that I've never been before. But to get to that point where I was confident that I could get to where I needed to be, irregardless of where I was dropped, I had to learn to put my trust in that compass and in that map. Not in what I could see, but what I knew to be so and to be accurate. What I knew that was the most accurate thing. Now, today everybody's got Google. And you think that Google's pretty good, and Google is pretty good. But every once in a while, Google will steer you wrong. And I don't know, sometimes I just get aggravated at Google. Because the last thing I need is two women in the car telling me which way to turn. And I'm not talking about Connie. I'm talking about other people. Where to stop, where to go. Slow down. I'm glad Google don't do that. But when you put all of your trust in Google, you know for a fact, if you've used it very much, if you put all your trust in Google, every once in a while you're going to be going around in circles somewhere, and you're going to be able to see where you're supposed to go, but you can't get there from here. Right? Because the roads change and Google's the same. So you've got to learn to navigate by faith. Knowing what you know. Knowing how to do it. And so you've got to put your faith in the right thing, your trust in the right thing. See, when we trust in God, we'll never go wrong. He will always lead us into the place that we need to be. It may not be where we think we need to be, but it's always where we do need to be. Y'all have heard me quote this scripture many times, but the scripture that I'm going to quote with this is Proverbs 3, 5 through 8. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. That's the key. There's two big points in there. One is trust the Lord with all your heart. And the second one is lean not on your own understanding. In other words, don't put your faith in what you know. Trust God with all your heart. If you're looking at a compass and a map and you're going in a direction and you're in a jungle or you in a desert and everything looks the same, and you start looking around going, well, this looks the same. But you look at your map and you look at your compass, you look at your coordinates, and you're going the way it says to go. Trust that, not what you see. Because if you look at what you see, you're going to end up going the wrong way. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. In everything that you do, make sure you understand that you put your faith in God. I'm going to keep my faith in God. I'm going to acknowledge that God is my keeper, that God is my compass, that God is my map. He is my go-to. He's my lighthouse. And He shall direct your paths. The Bible promises us that when we put our trust in God, that we don't lean on just what we know. And when we acknowledge that we trust God and what he knows, then he will make sure we go in the right direction. That's not my words, that's his words. He said, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. One of our biggest problems is trying to be wise in our own eyes. That's what happens when my wife is telling me I should stop and ask for directions, and I say no. I know exactly where I'm going. I am trying to be wise in my own eyes. And when I do that, when I don't trust God and I try to just fight my way through it, I end up in the wrong place. He says, when you depart from evil, when you're not wise in your own eyes and you depart from evil, it will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. Healing comes when you trust God. Healing comes when you quit trying to do it yourself. Healing comes when you quit being wise in your own eyes and trust God to get the job done. He promises that he'll do it. That's how we walk by faith. By putting our trust in the one that we can truly trust. Have you ever heard someone say, I don't trust myself? Have you ever said that yourself? Man, that's scary. But I felt that way too, man. I can't even trust myself. I can't trust what I know. Let me tell you something. God promises us that when we can't trust ourselves, we can still trust him. That he'll never leave us or forsake us. He'll never leave us in a bad place. He'll never leave us in a storm. He'll never leave us in a trial. Those are all things we may go through, but those aren't things that are places that we're going to live. Because he's going to give us an insight into the darkness so that we can see past it. I was in the military right at the end, I should say at the beginning of the technology that is called the night vision. When I first went in, there was no such thing as night vision. Night vision scopes, night vision goggles. You hear about that now. I mean, there are pilots now who can fly helicopters in the worst weather and in the complete total darkness with no lights, and pilots that can do that, tank commanders, anybody. If you got troops patrolling, they got night vision goggles, man, they can see you just like I'm seeing you now, and it can be pitch black outside. When I first went in, that wasn't the case, and actually toward the end. And I remember one night we were doing a patrol in this country that we had never been in, and it was a very mountainous region of that country, and we got lost. Happens. We did. We got lost. And part of the reason we got lost was because when you looked around and you were in the mountains and you look around at night, all you see is mountains. Everything looks the same. You know, you just see silhouettes of mountains. And we were following our maps and our compasses, and we knew that we had to be close, but we couldn't find where the guys we were supposed to meet up with were. Of course, they were practicing good light discipline. Well, the next night we went out and we actually were able to get our hands on a scope, a night vision scope. And man, it made all the difference in the world. When we wondered where we were at, we could look through that scope, and it was like all of a sudden we could see in the darkness. It was an amazing epiphany for a lot of us. What I'm saying is that when you accept Christ as your Savior and you work your faith, God gives you life vision goggles. He gives you the ability through faith to see things before they're happening, to see things that other people can't see, to see through the darkness of life, to know that you are on the right track. The second thing we got to do to walk by faith is to believe that the impossible is possible. Think about that statement for a minute. To believe that the impossible is actually possible. As an inventor, Thomas Edison made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. A reporter asked him, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? And Edison replied, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps to it. We have to know that God is in charge and He is the creator of all things. What do you think would have happened if all the things that people once thought were impossible were never attempted? Where would we be at today if everybody who said that one day that I would be able to write a letter and with one push of a button I could send it around the world and everybody in the world could see it within a millisecond? It wasn't that long ago that people would have never envisioned that. When I was in high school, you couldn't put a computer in this building. Now everybody has one in their pocket. And I'm not that old, kids. I'm pretty old, but I'm not that old. Think about the technology that has happened just in the last 100 years. Do you realize that up until the 1900s, for 2,000 years, or 1,900 years, up until that time, everybody traveled by horses. That was the only way to get around, was either by horse or by foot. But since the 1900s to the 2000s, think about what has happened. In just 100 years, automobiles, airplanes, jet engines, space travel, computers, worldwide communication, instant communication. The conveniences that we have of washing machines and dryers and dishwashers and whatever else you can think of have all happened in just a short period of time. Prior to the 1900s, none of that was available. But now we have all of this technology. Why? Because people believe the impossible. Let me ask you something. Is there anything that's happened in your life that people said, it'll be impossible for you to do that? But through your faith in God and the perseverance He gave you, that now it seems like no big deal? There you have it. It was an alarm. So I can say that I have. I remember, and I've told this story before maybe. I don't know if I've told you this story before. When I was in high school, I came from a very poor family. We didn't have money to do a lot of things. I went to work when I was 9 years old, pumping gas and fixing flats at a service station to help my family buy food and buy clothes, and started driving myself to school when I was 10 years old. And I literally drove. Back then we didn't have a lot of police out in the area that we lived in, and they didn't come out there, and if they did, everybody knew everybody, and so they weren't going to do nothing. They knew you were just trying to get by in life. Long story short, when I got in high school, I remember one of my high school counselors telling me that, Mike, you did real well on these tests and these achievement tests and this, that, and the other. And